Hello everyone and welcome to Don's PC Guide. In this episode, I'm going to be showing you an under $1,200 budget build for today. So that is January 2021. Now, before we get started with this build, I just want to let you know graphics cards are really hard to come by and they are really expensive right now. They're selling for way above MSRP. So the graphics card that I put in here, I do not recommend you actually use a couple months down the road, as obviously there's going to be a better supply in a couple months. If you can get a 3060 Ti, it's going to be way better than the 1660 Ti that I recommended right now. I just made sure that you could actually get the parts. So this is the best that you can do for today. Instead of actually building this computer, I'm going to be showing you the part list, a couple benchmarks, and I'm going to explain my complete reasoning as to why I chose each part. This budget part list is not meant to be used as is. There will be a link in the description below where you can click on it and it'll pull up my entire build. You can modify this as you wish to make it suit your needs much better. Everybody's a little bit different. You may need extra RAM, you may need a better graphics card, you may want AMD instead of Ryzen. Whatever it may be, feel free to change it. Starting off with our first part of the list, we have the Ryzen 5 3600. I know it's Zen 2 and the Zen 3 is out, but that's another issue. Just like the graphics cards, you can't really get Zen 3 processors right now. But once you can, that'll be a great upgrade. So also consider that if you're watching this video a few months into the future. I've included a bench against the i5 10600K. The K series Intel processors, if you don't know, those are also unlocked. So we can kind of compare two different processors that can be overclocked. Since I'm trying to squeeze out every single dollar from this build, I'm going to be recommending overclock. As you can see here, the 10600K, it sells for about $367, and it's about you'll get about 11% better FPS as it's estimated. It might be a little bit different, especially if you're overclocking, it'll change, and the parts will also change that. But about 11% better FPS from the 10600 as compared to the one that I've chosen, and the 10600K would be about 14% faster. But there are some specific reasons that I chose this processor. Number one being the price. So the 3600 is actually only $195. You get a 6-core 12-thread processor that's overclockable for $195. It's pretty hard to go wrong there. My favorite part about AMD processors is that they all come unlocked. So you don't have to look for the K at the end like Intel does. They all come unlocked. And that is where most of the value comes from. At least personally, most of the value I think is from having all of their processors unlocked. Now, since I have actually recommended that you overclock this build, we will need a better CPU cooler. You can't use the stock CPU cooler and expect it to be able to run an aggressive overclock. This one, it's a 240 millimeter, which is the length of the radiator. It's a 240 millimeter AIO. So it's got all the liquid in it. It's all set up to go. You just have to attach it to your motherboard and then screw it onto your case and you're all set. It's super easy, way better than running a custom water cooling build, and it's extremely good. It'll be good enough for this build, and even if you're upgrading the processor in the future. The next part that I chose is the motherboard. So that's the MSI X470 gaming motherboard. The X470 is a very good chipset, especially since we're only using the 3600 Ryzen processor. So this will be able to hold the power that is needed extra from your overclock, and you won't have as many stability issues as if you chose a worse chipset. Two extra things to say about this motherboard. It'll accept up to 64 gigabytes of DDR4 4133 megahertz RAM. Not that I'd ever tell you to actually get the 4133 megahertz RAM. It's a lot more expensive and you'll never notice a difference, especially if you're just running dual channel 3600 megahertz RAM like we will be in this build. That's plenty enough. You will not notice the increase to 4133, not yet at least. As well as There is no Wi-Fi built into this motherboard. If you want Wi-Fi, or if you need the Wi-Fi and you can't run Ethernet, you can just get a card to add the Wi-Fi, or you can fork up a little bit of extra money and get a motherboard with it built in. If you are going to be switching out this motherboard for another one, it shouldn't be an issue. Just make sure that it does have the M.2 slot if you are adding an M.2. As some motherboards might not have them, most of them have them nowadays, but just to be careful, make sure it has those M.2 slots. For the storage drive, I chose a 1TB ADATA Swordfish. This is actually a very impressive drive. It's an NVMe. Make sure when you're getting an M.2 type drive that you get the NVMe version. They do still sell just the regular M.2s, and those are much, much slower. If you do care about the bench, I have it right here on the screen, but I know a lot of people don't look at their benchmarks for their SSDs, as they're pretty fast to begin with. If you're playing just games with your drive, it's not going to make much of a difference. For the RAM, I chose this amazing G.Skill Ripjaws 3600 megahertz 16 gigabyte kit. The reason I chose a kit of 2 8 gigabyte sticks instead of just the one 16 gigabyte stick is you still have 4 channels of memory anyways. So putting in that dual channel, it'll get you a lot more FPS in those games that you play, and you'll still have 2 slots left to upgrade in the future. Now, I know that the 3600 megahertz RAM is faster than you'd really need, and you might not notice the difference compared to the 3400 megahertz, but it is really cheap right now. It's $78, so you may as well go with the really fast stuff. Now, here comes the part that is dreaded for me right now. It's the graphics card. I put a 1660 Ti. Do not recommend it. Don't get the 1660 Ti. It's old, it's outdated right now. Get the 3060 Ti when you can actually buy it. It's out of stock right now, so I had to put the 1660 Ti. If you need a computer right now, go for it, but you should be able to find the 3060 Ti in stores. It's just not available right now off PC Part Picker. For the case, you can basically choose whatever case you want. I chose the TD500 ARGB just because I love ARGB. This is addressable, so you can actually control the fans in a really funky way compared to just regular lighting, which is really cool. But just make sure that you get an ATX size case because the motherboard that we chose is an ATX format. It's the bigger motherboard, so if you get a really small case, you're not going to be able to fit anything. And we have that radiator added for our AIO, which takes up a lot of space, so just make sure you do get a big case. And for the very last part that I always add a disclaimer for, it is the power supply. Do not cheap out on your power supply. If you spend $1,000 or $1,200 as this build, and you blow up your computer because you cheaped out on the power supply, that's on you. Power supplies are so cheap. This one here, if we go back, the power supply is only $55, and this is a good one. This is 600 watts. It's an 80 plus certified, so it's really safe. It's a good brand name Thermaltake. It'll do you well. It's rated well above what you need. So you will be able to actually put in that better graphics card like I recommended before. That's the end of our under $1,200 US guide. If you have any other budgets in mind, feel free to let me know in the comments below and I'll make a video just for you. So if you want a guide under $600, just let me know and I'll make that for you ASAP. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more. Have a great day, everybody.